Hey y'all, how's it going? I'm trading the ES futures on a 2000 tick chart with a 21 EMA. So I've got the overnight high up here and the overnight low down here. These are our key levels for the day. And I started trading at 8 Central Time, which is this area right here. Now notice we have this uptrend, break. We start pushing up to a new high. So we get this first leg up, and the break from that, we start making that second leg. On a big picture, you can tell it's really just one leg back up there. You can see, you clearly got two legs up on a bigger picture. But getting into this, so after we push out, we clearly start forming our overnight highs with this resistance. We go into this range-like structure here. And we also have this wider possible uptrend. It fit off that right there after I dragged it off of that low and ended up holding here a couple times. But we got this pretty good rush below. Once again, we have this uptrend, break, two attempts at a new high, clearly started finding resistance, forming this range right here, breakout. Most breakouts fail, and we have a pretty good pushback in. Very bearish bar. It's closing back below the EMA. Once again, outside of this trend line. So I did like this right here. Once again, this is the overnight high, and also formed this failed breakout right on it. So I really did like that. Now we push lower here, and after we break out, we attempt to get break out of this low right here, even though it wasn't completely confirmed necessarily off of this low at this point. It was still clearly in a range structure. After we push out, we attempt to get a breakout pullback. We push lower. Once again, we don't really get an entry there because it's just a first entry breakout pullback. That's not good enough. And then here we make a double bottom, same kind of thing. We kind of just get this little breakout pullback. And once again, no real setup here. We made a double bottom. That's just another first entry breakout pullback. Of course, no good entry bar, also back above the EMA. So there's really nothing to take right there. Now I do want to point out that this leg, of course, was smaller, as it was forming. Eventually it got bigger picture. There we go. So we have that first leg down, break, and then we start making the second leg down here. Now some might say, we have this measure move in play, but we already have these two attempts to reach it. Well, that's true, but we also got two attempts to reverse after that. And so we can then continue with this downtrend because it's clearly holding. So wider downtrend in play. We got this measured move in play. Even though we got these two attempts to reach the measured move, after the two attempts to reverse, this wider channel still held. So that's why I like this right here. Very simple, just one-to-one right there. Which that's supposed to be like that, actually. So push out here. Notice we get this break of this channel here. We get this pretty clear, sharp leg. It's a pretty good leg. We get a break, and these two legs up are clearly connected. This one's pushing out of the channel, and this one continues out. This second leg just happens to be a lot bigger. Now, when we were pushing up here, I was hoping that we would just rush back below and get a quick lower high or a small failed second entry back into this range structure right here. Because it would make sense too, because you have the downtrend, two-legged break, and you can expect a short, but the EMA did end up holding, and so we couldn't get an entry. And of course, this is not good right here because at this point you still had this up measured move in play into the EMA. You want to see it actually confirm and get below, especially when you're finding resistance very high up in the range, the overnight range. You're finding resistance. If you want to continue short, it's not good that you're seeing resistance, so you want to see a good setup. But we end up just pushing all the way back up to the overnight high. That's kind of like making a double top of a major level here. And so ideally we could get a very clear reversal pattern, but unfortunately we don't get that. We end up just rushing back below. And then this lower high, I didn't like this lower high because you were entering pretty low into the move, and considering it was just very choppy in this area right here, I wanted to see a full-on reversal pattern. And so let me just go over that one more time. We had this very clear rejection to the downside here, two legs down, a rejection pushing all the way back up. That's the first sign of a bullish imbalance, when the bulls take control of a range. And so it kind of starts heavily tilting in one side of the range. And so that's what we got here. That's why I didn't want to go short right into this, but we do end up pushing down here. We're going to this wider channel. Now I want to delete that and redraw this, or I should probably, just to make sure it's accurate, re-copy that over. So you see those two smaller legs I had drawn turned into one bigger leg, and then we get a second leg down, and it's very clearly connected. So these price action levels are very important to understand. You got to learn to spot them in real time, when to adjust them. So anyway, after we get these two legs down here, on this channel down, we clearly overshoot, and overshoots, they lead to breaks, they lead to stronger breaks, and we didn't get a break on this first attempt out, this first attempt to push out, but it was a very strong move up from that overshoot, pushed into that, and then on that second leg higher, we broke. So, that's very typical. When you get an overshoot, breaks are common right after, but it's usually going to be stronger breaks than usual. But once again, it'll often be in the form of two legs, not just immediately. Now, at this point here, we have two legs up, and let me zoom back out. We're at the end of this bigger two legs down. So even though we have these small two legs up, it doesn't mean we can just expect to immediately go short here. We also draw out this wider trend line here, and we can see we get a second entry long right off of it. It continues to hold. It's not the most clear setup here, but it is pretty choppy. But I do want to mention that even when it's choppy, you can still tell what's going on if you really study. You can still see that there's two legs down there off the trend line. And so I was unfortunately AFK at the time. I was not even at the desk, so I couldn't even attempt to enter that. But I do like that area right there. Once again, you're at the end of two big legs down. Even though you just had two attempts higher, you did just get two attempts back lower, clearly trying to fade that range. So I did like that off this trend line, which when I drew this, if it's right off that body, it doesn't quite reach it. Just a very tiny push in right off that close, and then that wick, and then we get a strong reaction. We tick lower than that red bar right before, and then we push on higher. So anyway, we get two more measured legs out of that. As soon as this measured leg is met, we push on down. Now, once again, this trend line, it was holding, so you don't want to enter short right into that. Now, we push on lower here. We make a double bottom, this bigger double bottom, still clearly sideways. So this is still kind of keeping with this bullish imbalance. We end up pushing a little bit lower since then, but, it's still holding quite a lot to the upside at this point, which actually has to do with this orange circle trade right here, which there was no trade for me here. But anyway, so where was I? Yeah, right here, after making this double bottom, like right here, I did not want to go long, because right after we had these two attempts down, we got these two attempts to reverse, right? And so since we had these two attempts to reverse higher, this is basically the start of a new downtrend. And so I was expecting a possible, larger attempt down, like a second leg. So I just wanted more confirmation. This was just a higher low, even though there's a tick lower there. I really just view this as a higher low. I would want to see more separation for it to be a, full-on failed second entry. So, we have the bullish imbalance going for the longs, but we also have this possible second leg down from this push down for the bears. So it's just one of those areas where there's reasons to go long, there's reasons to go short, and then, it's just a higher low. It's not like a full-on reversal pattern or anything, so I decided it'd be best to avoid that. Now we push on higher here, we make this double top. And now here, this would have been a great area for a failed second entry, a reversal pattern back down, because, clearly this high just held. It's forming this range. It's very sideways. We have this double bottom, just formed a double top. And, we have this bearish trend. It's not the most clear off the highs. I drew it off these lows. I drew it a couple different ways at first, but it was clear that we had some kind of downward slant right there. So considering that, and considering that double top, sharp rush below the EMA, this is a great place for a reversal pattern, kind of like right here. I wanted the full reversal pattern, but unfortunately we don't. We just get a drop below, and that's not enough to enter short on. So, and also, even if you did want to enter short on that, look at your target there. You'd have to push it past this double bottom, and this double bottom is a sign of a bullish imbalance, so you don't want to just push it on through that much, you know what I mean? So I would have wanted to see a clear reversal pattern, but we don't get that. We just push on lower here. We reach this trend line. Oh, whoops, I didn't mean to move that just now. So we reach that trend line. Now when you come off the lower trend line of a trend, you want to see two attempts to reach the other side before you continue with the trend, because these these trend lines kind of like range lines. When you come off one side, you can expect to reach the other side, and you can generally expect 2 attempts. Same thing with these trends. Even though trends have a bias, you can still expect a couple attempts to reach the other side. And so here, notice you get, after you get this little overshoot, you get this first leg up, break, second leg up, but it kind of got sideways, closed above the EMA. It's just not ideal for to continue down. It's just not ideal. You want to see it actually hold below, because overshoots, like I said earlier, they lead to strong breaks. And so if you get an overshoot, you want to see it at least get back below the EMA. And so when I say strong breaks, I mean strong breaks of the other side of the trend, which means that if you're not getting back below, you're more likely to hold and push to the other side. But then here, these 2 legs on a bigger picture, it forms one leg. We get the break, second leg, perfect measured move, met to the tick. And as soon as this measured move is met, we push below the EMA. Now, this, you can kind of see, it's not the most clear, but you can see we have that push down, and then there's a break pushing up right there. Let me draw it out with these trend lines so it's a bit easier to see. So we have a push down, push back up, push back down, and then it's kind of forming a failed second entry right there. Now, I did like it just after right here, but it didn't trigger, and I wasn't wanting to enter that up here because we pushed back above and it didn't really close back below and kind of reconfirm. So I ended up waiting for this right here, because now we're actually pushing back down. It's clearly below the EMA. It looks like we're really bearish after this measured move was met. So, I didn't like it after it pushed back above there, but when we reconfirmed back down here, this looked good. So I liked that a whole lot. We ended up pushing out like crazy there, but you can't, guess that this is going to happen. It was kind of going sideways here. The EMA was a little bit flat. You can, I'll draw out this range, so that's why you can't just expect it to push through these lows and, push through this sideways action. So just 1-to-1. Now we do end up pushing out, continuing to overshoot this trend line here. We're pushing out of the overnight low now. So we could get a couple attempts to fade, like 2 legs higher. That'd be 2 attempts to fade and then possibly continue with the breakout. But who knows? Considering this big overshoot, we could get a very strong break and push out to the other side. Either way, and of course another possibility, since overshoots lead to strong breaks, is if we do end up successfully pushing back in, we could just get like a big reversal pattern, like a big picture failed second entry. Possibly pushing back in, 2 legs retesting the overnight low. That could offer a great long. So anyway, that's going to do it for this video. I hope this video helped out in some way. I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.